Guys, there's no way to sugarcoat it. Nobody likes Democrats anymore. We have no voters left because of all of our woke trans bull. Not even black people want to vote for us anymore. Even Latinos hate us. So we need new voters. And if we give all these illegal aliens free health care, we might be able to get them on our side so they can vote for us. They can't even speak English, so they won't realize we're just a bunch of woke pieces of shit, you know, at least for a while until they learn English and they realize they hate us too.
The next time you have something to say about me, don't cop out through a racist and fake AI video. When I'm back in the Oval Office, say it to my face. Say it to my face. It's a disgusting video, and we're going to continue to make clear bigotry will get you nowhere. We are fighting to protect the health care of the American people in the face of an unprecedented Republican assault.
And live from Times Square, it's Sombrero Saturday on That Kevin Show.
Somewhere in the bowels of the city that never sleeps,
Kevin McCullough, radio host with Salem Media,
is a man also not sleeping.
Syndicated radio talk show host Kevin McCullough.
And that guy would like a word with you.
Many of you know him from as Votes.
Of course That Kevin Show is going to be great. The only thing that could be greater, of course, would be That Donald Show. We don't have that, so we have That Kevin Show.
Featuring the music of Dick Tunney and the Dream in Color Orchestra. Straight ahead, Dinesh D'Souza, documentarian on the 2-year commemoration of October 7th. Elizabeth Pipko, model and author and former GOP spokeswoman. Jack Ciattarelli, the next governor of New Jersey. Sketch comedy from Not a Parody, Diaper Diplomacy, and the Daily Caller. And new music from Scotty McCreery and Hootie and the Blowfish. And now from Times Square, celebrating Sombrero Saturday, the only holiday where you can get taxed twice for tequila and still have Chuck Schumer call it free. Here's Kevin! Arriba! Welcome aboard to the weekend. We've got a lot to get to. And yes, it is going to be Sombrero Saturday all day on the show today. Unless you happen to be one of those TV viewers or DVR players or radio listeners that gets it on Sunday. Then it's Sombrero Sunday. I even had some Jewish friends who were asking me about Sombrero Saturday, and they said, do you mind if we go Sombrero Shabbat? I'm like, hey, knock yourself out. Whatever makes you happy, my friend. Yo quiero winning. So, yes, we're celebrating, but we're not celebrating. Although we're not as sad as we thought we would be because of the shutdown. We got a lot to get to. I'm going to get to all of it in just a minute. But we have another huge show for you. Dinesh D'Souza is here today. We are going to talk about the brand new film that he has just put out, The Dragon's Prophecy. Salem Media has partnered with Dinesh D'Souza to help create this film, and it observes some very important facts about October 7th as we are approaching the second commemoration of that horrid day. But Dinesh will join me a little bit later on. Yes, one of the most lovely ladies on the planet, Elizabeth Pipko, will be back with us. She was my very first guest here on That Kevin Show, but she was the GOP spokesperson last year, and now she's in and out of the White House, and she's still advising the president. She's doing a lot of really cool, fun things, but she's got some thoughts on not just the October 7th stuff, but also where we are with this shutdown mess. And then before we're done, he wants to be the next governor of the Garden State. Mr. Jack Ciattarelli, who might just pull it off, will be with us before we're done as well. Later on in the new music spotlight, you know him, you love him, Scotty McCreery. And special guest, we pulled out all the stops this weekend, friend. Hootie and the Blowfish join Scotty. It's going to be fantastic. But let's get back to the story of the moment, the Sombrero Saturday. I wrote about it in townhall.com this week in two different columns because once the shutdown started, I kept trying to come up with a reason that this wasn't going to be in some way a good thing for the country. And of course, people thought I was an uncaring, unfeeling, big meanie because I asked the question, where's the downside? And I have a brother-in-law who is active military duty, and I don't want him to go without pay. And I don't want the feeding centers that we help those who cannot help themselves, which are not nearly as many as they would like us to think that there are, but the ones who truly can't help themselves, I want them to be able to eat, and I don't want those things to go without. So I want to pay our military, and I want to feed hungry people. But aside from that, I think there's a lot of upsides to what we're doing right now. Because when you have the government shut down, the government can't spend money. And if the government can't, for instance, and I asked some people about this week, if they can't, like, say, pay the 4,300 lug nuts that work over at the Department of Education. Now, you have to understand what the Department of Education is. From the left, they're going to describe it as one of the most needed institutions in the country, that we're going to be depriving children of everything good that they could possibly learn if we, for some reason, put the Department of Education on leave permanently. And yet, did you know that the Department of Education only got created in 1979, and that every year that it's been in existence, our test scores for our students have gotten worse, not better? Every year that it's been in existence, we've gotten to be dumber as a country. Every year since it was founded. Now, the guy that started it, Jimmy Carter, not a really bright man himself, but he had a good heart. He was trying to do the good thing. He said, if there's some way we can help, we want to help. But now you got 4,300 bureaucrats that sit in cubicles in the building in Washington, and they don't do anything. They don't write memos that teachers read. They're not involved in studies that predict performance by our children. It's really hard to try to defend those number of jobs sitting there doing those number of things. So what if we just said poof to the Department of Education overnight? What would happen? Would schools close down? Nope, because they're funded at the state level. Would teachers and parents not still work together to try to create the best situation for their kids? The best schools in the country are doing that without the Department of Education's involvement. So there's a lot of things that could be done. Now, some people say, well, what about breakfast for poor kids? Or that, well, you can still do that through Health and Human Services or there's other departments that can handle some of those types of things. But here's the thing. What if we could get rid of those 4,300 people? Make them go back to the real job market and prove their worth in the actual marketplace. Hadn't thought about that. That's an upside. So now I know Senator Muchacho Schumer and Congress hombre Hakeem Jeffries are very upset about the fact that we are celebrating Sombrero Saturday today. But they shouldn't be, because it's actually a good thing. They imposed a good thing on the country. We're going to clean up government. We're going to get it smaller. The stuff that Doge wasn't able to finish off, the president, one little strike of his pen, he can do away with a ton of it. And in the process, he doesn't have to go through congressional hearings and meetings and all the stuff that normally Congress would say, well, we're very important. We're Congress. We should be involved with all this. You should have come and consulted with us. Well, the president can say, I wanted to, but Muchacho Schumer and hombre Hakeem, they shut us down. And why'd they shut us down? Because they want to give your tax dollars to people who do not have the right to be here, to provide them free health care when your premiums have gone up 30% a year for the last several years. Now, all kidding aside, friends, the fact that we are at this place is an anathema. It's a damning revelation of how bad our politics are, particularly with the far left of the Democratic Party. But you know what I appreciate? I appreciate the fact that President Trump is not going to allow this to continue unabated. So he'll just start firing people, letting people go, downsizing government in ways that probably have needed to be done for some time. And at the end of the day, Sombrero Saturday, as we call it around here, will have come to represent something very meaningful, a new start for a smaller, more effective, leaner, better government that doesn't waste your tax dollars, but actually puts them to proper use. And who can't say arriba about that? I'm just saying, it could be a lot worse. Whether you're a drug lord in Venezuela and you're getting tracked down by our Hellfire missiles, or whether you're just a bureaucrat, taking up space, taking up salary, and not doing anything for us. This is a good weekend for America. Pay our military, feed our hungry. Get all the rest of it the right size. Kevin McCullough, Sombrero Saturday continues. Stay with us on That Kevin Show.
Kevin McCullough.
Welcome back to Times Square. It's That Kevin Show, thatkevinshow.com. Always glad to interact with anybody who wants to be there. Social media, podcasts, everything all in one spot. There are a few things that have impacted our lives in the last few years, like October 7th has, and for my Jewish friends in particular. I think in a lot of ways, October 7th eclipses 9/11 in terms of historical significance and importance. And as I am having this conversation with you right now, a deal has been announced by President Trump, but it has not yet been accepted by Hamas. Bibi Netanyahu's on board with it, but will it bring an ultimate end to the war in Gaza? We don't know. But we are all hoping for the best. But what does October 7th mean in terms of historical context? And are there larger spiritual implications? That is kind of the idea of a new film from one of my favorite documentarians, Dinesh D'Souza, who rejoins us here at Kevin McCullough. Dinesh, always good to see you. Thanks for making some time for us.
It's my pleasure. I'm very excited about the new film. And like you say, it is an attempt to show why October 7th is not just another terrorist event or even an historic event. It's really a biblical event. And so are all the events unfolding in the Middle East now. They are anticipated in Bible prophecy. They have parallels in some of the ancient battles fought by the Israelites against their kind of classic enemies. And all of this, I think, is depicted with a freshness and a power in this film that I'm very proud of.
I want to talk about kind of your approach to it, because a lot of people, if they're familiar with your filmmaking, they know you for being kind of the guy that makes the documentary that nobody else makes about the political and kind of cultural zeitgeist that are happening, et cetera. This is a distinctively kind of different feel for you in terms of how it's made. You engaged someone who has been even quite controversial himself, Jonathan Cahn, but who's written a lot and talked a lot about some of these types of things, images from the Old Testament, symbolism, et cetera. But I want to know, Dinesh, beyond all that, what was it about October 7th for you that said this is the film that needs to be made? Because I know that you like to throw curveballs in at the last minute, and sometimes we see things from your films that we don't see from others.
This film developed sort of in three stages. My wife and I discovered biblical archaeology at the end of 2022. And we're talking here about stones and inscriptions and seals coming out of the ground for the first times in thousands of years. And these are confirming and ratifying the historicity, the accuracy of both the Hebrew and the Christian scriptures. I mean, amazing stuff. For centuries, people like King David, Jeremiah, Isaiah, even Pontius Pilate, they were in the Bible, but they were only in the Bible. You couldn't corroborate them by any external evidence, but now you can. So I was excited and interested in all this. I realized that it not only shows that the Bible is accurate, but it also shows the presence of the Jews in their ancestral homeland, going back 3,000 years or more. And then along comes October 7th, and I was thinking about these two things together, and I realized that the biblical archaeology belongs in a discussion of October 7th. Why? Because the underlying question is, whose land is it? And then along comes Jonathan Kahn with some very startling statements like, listen, the battle between Israel and Hamas is a recreation, he calls it a resurrection, of ancient battles between the Israelites and the Philistines. And then he goes on to trace how the name Philistine, the name Palestine, it's really the same name. It's the same word. But more than that, there is a parallelism of tactics. If I can give the example of Samson in the Bible, Samson is the hero representing the strength of Israel. He's captured by the Philistines. They blind him in much the same way that Israel was, quote, blinded on October 7th. The Bible says they drag him back where? To Gaza. The Philistines controlled what they called Philistia, but the main city in Philistia was Gaza. And then the Bible says the people of Gaza demanded that Samson be stripped and brought out for their, quote, entertainment. And sure enough, right after October 7th, hostages are paraded in Gaza. They're stripped. You have people dancing around them, Allahu Akbar. So, what Khan says, and I found this a very memorable statement, he goes, Samson is the first hostage of Gaza. Boom. And I'm like, wow, this is really a enlarged, novel, interesting way to look at this. So my mind is secular. I mean, I wanted to bring in the biblical archaeology because I know there are going to be people who go, well, yeah, Dinesh, but how do we know the Bible is interesting, but how do we know it's true? So I go beyond Khan's book to incorporate, you can say, the verification of scripture, and then I've got a one-on-one with Netanyahu, a one-on-one with our ambassador Huckabee. There's just a lot in this film, but woven together, I think, into a very ultimately uplifting tapestry.
It is interesting because in the aftermath of October 7th and then Trump's election, and Governor has done my show every Friday for the last several years. And as both of us being born again Christians, we talk a lot on air and off about the times that we live in. And Dinesh, I don't know about you specifically, but when October 7th went down, I think a lot of Christians were asking themselves that larger question. Is this in some way a sign of the end times? Are there things that are pointing to another section of biblical prophecy beginning to unfold, etc.? I'm curious, after making the film, after looking at all this, how do you see the end of days? How do you kind of view Revelation? What's been a movement, if there has been, in your positioning on anything?
Well, I try to view it not through kind of, let's just say, a particularist lens that tries to describe blow by blow what's going to happen next. My view is that the book of Revelation is, perhaps deliberately somewhat veiled, somewhat obscure. However, there are some large biblical signposts or landmarks that you can't miss. The convergence of the Jews back in their ancestral homeland. That's a big one. The Bible predicts it. It is extremely implausible, and yet it happened. I also think that it's very clear that in the end times, both God and Satan will be like on the move. And I think what we're seeing, and this is the underlying premise of the film, that people talk about underneath our political war is a cultural war, and underneath that is a spiritual war. But nobody typically asks, well, who's fighting? Who is this war between, right?
It's true.
Well, the two combatants are God and the dragon. That's the meaning, by the way, of the title, The Dragon's Prophecy. The dragon refers to Satan. And since Satan is not as strong as God, Satan relies on imitating God's tactics. So God resurrects the Jews. Satan goes, let me resurrect some of the enemy peoples of Israel. Fascinating concept. Also, Satan picks on the people that God likes, because then Satan can kind of have the last laugh on God. So in Genesis 1, why does Satan pick on Adam and Eve? What have they done to him? Nothing. But Satan's point is, if I get them, this is the cherished creation of God, I'm going to get a big ha 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 on God. I think for the same reason Satan targets the Jews. They're the people of God. Satan is like, all right, let me destroy them. Let me push them out from the river to the sea. Let me take their Solomonic temple going back 3,000 years and stick a Muslim victory arch on top of it called the Dome of the Rock, and with the Al-Aqsa Mosque as its adjunct. I mean, yes, I do think that all of this is outlined.
Stick around for more of That Kevin. Next, That Kevin. Show with Kevin McCullough. From New York, that Kevin McCullough.
Welcome back to Times Square. Kevin McCullough, glad to have you with us. You see him nightly on the Salem News Channel. If you subscribe to his podcast, you see him in your inbox. But Dinesh D'Souza, one of our favorite thinkers around these parts, and Dinesh has done many important documentary films. But I'm curious, Dinesh, as to where you would rank the Dragon's Prophecy, and we want to send people to make sure that they see it. I'm going to ask you to tell us. There's a number of ways that they can see it in the next few days. I don't want to make sure everybody knows all those, but thedragonsprophecyfilm.com. Dragons is plural. Dragonsprophecyfilm.com when you go there. But Dinesh, where would you, because it is so kind of distinct from your political documentaries in terms of the overarching tone of this, and I think in a lot of ways it's a lot more important.
No, I agree. I think that my earlier films in some ways are all about the meaning of America. My film on Obama, on Hillary, 2000 Mules, of course, focusing on election issues. So I have not done a global film like this. I haven't taken it abroad. And here I am making, you could say, the moral case for Israel from a biblical point of view, but also from an America First point of view. There are some people, I think, on the right who think America First means America only. And I also think that there is this somewhat rabid and very destructive hatred toward Israel and toward the Jews that is poisoning the MAGA coalition and threatening to fracture it, to actually break it apart.
I hope you're wrong on that, but I fear that you are right.
Yes, and it's not just an ideological divide, it's also a generational divide. And so we have these sort of, young people these days, and they're spouting just the absolute not just ignorant, but just malicious lies. And I don't blame them, because a lot of them are dysfunctional kids. They're raised in problematic environments. They don't see a lot of opportunity. So they are ripe for anti-Semitism. But what I do blame are the Pied Pipers, the sort of influential people on the right who are leading them down this destructive road. And like I say, it's not just bad for Israel. It's not just bad for America. It is also bad for the Republican Party. It's bad for Trump. It's bad for America First.
Well, I think that there's a lot of confusion about the Israel issue in general when it comes to the MAGA position, because of what you've identified. The idea that America needs to be the first has been interpreted as kind of the only priority. Even President Trump hasn't approached it from that viewpoint. I mean, I was watching the press conference with Bibi Netanyahu, and again, as we are taping this, Hamas has not agreed to the ceasefire yet, so it could just be another exercise in futility. But it is very obvious, and Bibi was not shy about saying it, that there's been no friend to Israel stronger than Donald Trump, particularly in the modern era. So I think that that's a pretty if MAGA should be reflecting what the president is about, standing with Israel is where we should be.
No question about it. Look, we give, $3.8 billion in aid to Israel, and it's a lot of money, but it's not a big fraction of our foreign aid budget. In fact, it's about 5%. We give lots of money to people who hate us, who give us the middle finger, who haven't done a thing for us. It looks to me like if we evaluate our sort of ROI, our return on investment with Israel, these guys are on the front lines of fighting radical Islam, and they do it with a brilliance that we cannot even hope to match. Look at that stuff with the pagers, Hey, Abdul, you ready for the next jihad? Boom, I wish our CIA could pull off stuff like this, but I don't think they can. They certainly never have. So here's Israel. They're taking on the radicals in Yemen, in the Sudan, in Turkey, in Qatar. So, they're doing it, and we don't know how to do it. I mean, look at the way Jimmy Carter pulled the Persian rug out from the Shah. We got Khomeini. We helped radical Islam get a hold of a major state.
Blew him in.
After 9/11, we bombard the Taliban. They all run into the mountains. But guess what? 20 years later, they're back. We botched the situation in Israel. Obama hands over Egypt to the Muslim Brotherhood. So look at our dismal record versus. So it just looks to me like the little Satan, Israel, is doing a heck of a job, and we, the big Satan, need to get behind them.
Well, and I think that we have some clarity, at least in the White House, for the time being on that note. I am curious about one other thing. And again, I haven't viewed the entire film yet. Do the Abraham Accords play into this narrative in any way that you and Jonathan discuss in any detail?
Not in detail, but I think the relevance of the Abraham Accords is that they do demonstrate that our fight is with radical Islam and not necessarily with Islam itself. We're not fighting the Muslims in Indonesia.
Dinesh, just keep telling the truth and keep making people think through story. I think it's one of the most powerful ways that we can get truth across. And there's not enough people doing it, but you are, and we're grateful.
Stick around for more of That Kevin. Next, That Kevin Show with Kevin McCullough. Here he is from New York. That Kevin McCullough.
Welcome back. Kevin McCullough, glad to have you with us. Friends, I am very, very pleased to tell you that in the course of this year, where we have asked you to help us with our slave liberation project, and this is, I think, the 8th year we've done it, we've seen over the course of those 8 years, by the way, just on this show, more than 5,000 human beings be liberated from human slavery, and that touches me greatly. But I want to tell you that this year we have hit a little bit of a challenge. We have a goal of 208 slaves that we know the names of, and we have a list for that we can liberate this year. But we have only liberated 72 thus far, which means that we still have, 136 that are still in captivity and will not be scheduled to be liberated until we speak for them. And this is of great concern to me because we have September, October, November, December. Now, we could do that fairly simply if everyone that has the potential to liberate a slave steps up and says, I will do that. I will be part of that solution. We could do that pretty quickly. We could probably finish it off in just a week or two if everybody said, hey, let's get on board. But I am very, very worried that we are going to get to the end of the year, and instead of giving someone a Christmas liberation that will set them free for the rest of their life, we tell someone that they have to wait for another liberation opportunity to come along. So I am very concerned, and I'm leaning into you a little bit because I want to make sure that if we have the opportunity to do so, that we do it immediately, that we don't wait for some other time. I don't know when these precious, precious women will have another chance. And I want to make sure that if we know their name and we know their story and we have negotiated for them to be released now, that we do everything that we can in order to do that. Okay, so here's how it works. A lot of you have written, said, Kevin, we're just hearing about it for the first time this year. How does it work? These slaves were taken into captivity during the Sudan Civil War, and what is now Northern Sudan or Sudan proper, were holding Christian women from the South, that is now its own country, South Sudan. They were holding women from that area as slaves, captives, sex slaves, chattel slaves, work slaves, you name it. These women have been put through it. They have been sexually abused. They are regularly verbally abused. They are physically abused. They are beaten. They are raped. They are tortured. And if they resist at all, it just gets worse. That's what they have lived with for the last 15 to 20 years individually. And some of them taken as young girls. The abuse started very young because many of them are just still in their late 20s, early 30s when we are able to get them liberated. And that means they have still a very full life to live. My friends at Christian Solidarity International, who were kind of crucial in getting the peace accord drawn up between the North and the South in Sudan, and used the American administration and other governments to help put pressure on the two sides, was not able to convince the international community to do anything about the slavery. So we have Christian Solidarity International and people like you and I have been diligently trying to get the 185,000 slaves out of northern Sudan back to southern Sudan where they came from. And to date, we've liberated over 100,000 slaves, which is amazing. The problem is that we have about 35 to 40,000 slaves left, and that does include the children of some of the slaves who were impregnated by their slave masters in slavery. But this is how simple it is, and this is how it works, and it's a very, very simple process. $250 one time. $250 one time liberates a slave for life. It gives them their freedom, and not only that, the main thing it gives them, because we negotiate the freedom, the main thing that it gives them is everything they need to start their life over. So in the what's called the bag of hope that is given to every liberated slave, you have bags of grain for food that they can make for the coming year, a full year's worth of sorghum grain. Then there's a bag of seed that they can plant to grow more sorghum. So you've got food for now, you've got food for the future. They are also given some clothing items, some blankets, some tarps, some things that help protect them from the weather, some things that will help them survive in the kind of unique weather that South Sudan has. There are utensils for gardening, fishing, cleaning, all of those types of things that they may need. There are some utensils for them that cover all of those things. And then kind of the cherry on top of the sundae is they're given a little she-goat. A little she-goat that can be used to have other baby goats and thus give them some micro-enterprise for their life. That and growing the grain and producing the milk and the cheese. They can also have a lot of food products that they're going to be able to use. Some of them will be able to liberate their children with them, and so this will be automatic nourishment for their kids, the goat milk in particular. These are all things that are going to come about from your $250 gift. Your one-time $250 gift supplies the goat and all of those supplies, plus a Bible, plus some other things as needed. Some of the women need medical care because of how the abuse has been impacted upon them. They receive that at no additional charge. Counseling, the ability to talk to people from CSI, the ability to write their story down and remember their name. They also help them find the original place of origin where they came from in South Sudan. And if they have family, if they have friends who remember them, they try to relocate them there. But if they can't find someone, then there are now these communities of former slaves that have sort of banded together to form sisterhoods that they can go and live with in freedom. No more slavery, no more beatings, no more labor that is forced upon them. They get to have a life. And most importantly, they get to begin to worship God the way they wish as Christians instead of taking on the false Islamic identities that their slave masters forced them to do. One of the ways that they are abused is female genital circumcision, which is visited upon them. The slave master says, if you're going to be a good woman in this culture, you have to circumcise yourself. Many of the women bleed out. Some of them have died from the procedures. Many times it's very unsanitary in how they are forced to do it, and they're forced to do it to themselves. It is heinous what they have gone through. And yet, friends, we can change all of that for them. 1-888-342-1010. 888-342-1010. Or go to this website, bringherhome.org. Bringherhome.org or 888-342-1010. But please go and liberate a slave right now. We need your help.
Ready or not, we'll be right back. That Kevin.
Just going back to the sombrero, you said that the president's joking, but Hakeem Jeffrey says that these memes were racist. What's your response to that? And just if I may briefly go off topic, Secretary Hegseth yesterday made an edict about no more beardos in the military. Just wondered what.
Sorry, what did he say?
No more beardos Beards. Oh, sorry, that's my accent. Just wanted your response to that.
I didn't see that particular comment. I thought Pete gave a hell of a speech, and a speech that really is just oriented around returning the American military to the very high standards that it has had for virtually its entire history until Joe Biden came along and decided to lower standards. I think it was bad for our military, and it was bad for our troops. When I was a young United States Marine, I did not have a beard. I am now the vice president, so I get to do what I want to do. But I think Pete's trying to re-implement high standards, and that's a very good thing. On the Sombrero thing, I mean, Hakeem Jeffries said it was racist, and I know that he said that, and I honestly don't even know what that means. Like, is he a Mexican American that is offended by having a sombrero meme? I mean, I saw one of the major TV stations put the meme up and then say, this is AI generated. And he had like the curly animated mustache too. It's like, do you really not realize the American people recognize that he did not actually come to the White House wearing a sombrero and a black curly animation mustache? Like, give the country a little bit of credit. We're all trying to do a very important job for the American people. The President of the United States likes to have a little bit of fun when he's doing it, and I think that's okay.
Somewhere in the bowels of the city that never sleeps,
Kevin McCullough, radio host with Salem Media,
is a man also not sleeping.
Syndicated radio talk show host Kevin McCullough.
And that guy would like a word with you.
Many of you know him as votes for Damas.
Of course that Kevin show is going to be great. The only thing that could be greater, of course, would be that Donald show. We don't have that, so we have that Kevin show.
Featuring the music of Dick Tunney and the Dream in Color Orchestra. Still to come, model, author, and former GOP spokeswoman Elizabeth Pipko. And he wants to be the next governor of the Garden State. Jack Ciattarelli stops by. Sketch comedy from Not a Parody, diaper diplomacy in the Daily Caller, and some more new music from Scotty McCreery in the Spotlight. And now from Times Square, where the Democrats' newest contribution to American culture is Sombrero Saturday. Because who needs jobs or borders when you've got party hats? Here's the Kevin!
For Assignment Desk Weekend, I'm Kevin McCullough. The U.S. military proudly announced this week that they sank yet another alleged drug boat off of the coast of Venezuela. Officials say the boat was allegedly trafficking cocaine. But really, who among us hasn't tried to deliver a little nose candy across international waters at 3 a.m.? The four on board did not survive, proving once again that if you think the government can't shut you down, just try running a small business. Meanwhile, back home, furloughed federal employees are unleashing searing auto replies during the shutdown. Yes, apparently typing, "I'm out of the office," in bold italics now qualifies as activism. Democrats say these out-of-office emails will save democracy. Republicans say they'll just clog spam filters. See, once again, America divided. At UNC, a professor tied to a far-left gun club has been reinstated after a threat assessment. Because nothing says safe campus like your Marxist sociology prof bringing an AR-15 to class. Somewhere Hunter Biden just signed up for the adjunct program. Speaking of campuses, OnlyFans is surging on college campuses this fall. Experts warn of hidden dangers. You don't say. Who could have guessed that turning freshman orientation into freshman monetization could carry some sort of downside? The Treasury Department, never one to miss a chance at being kitsch, is reportedly planning to mint $1 coins in Trump's image. Economists predict they'll be worth at least $3 on eBay, or $10,000 if you can convince CNN's Brian Stelter to choke on one. The Supreme Court is taking up a challenge to Hawaii's restrictive gun laws. Hawaii's argument, we already have volcanoes, what more do you people want for danger? Judge Clarence Thomas is rumored to be packing a lei and a Glock for opening arguments. Viral footage shows a woman lunging at a MAGA activist in broad daylight. Democrats call it a mostly peaceful lunging. Republicans called it Wednesday. The woman already has a book deal. In Tennessee, the governor is praising federal crackdowns on Memphis crime. Locals say they'll believe it when Graceland's gift shop opens after dark again. Over in the world of food, Cracker Barrel dumped its woke rebranding consultant. The chain decided to go back to its roots: biscuits, gravy, and grandpa staring suspiciously at you from the corner table. Meanwhile, Chili's new menu have customers outraged. Yes, Americans will tolerate inflation and border collapse and endless wars, but touch the baby back ribs jingle and there will be blood. Just maybe not queso. For a Simon Desk Weekend, I'm Calvin McCullough.
Campbell is never gonna beat me in November. Donna's gonna make the country better than you can remember. Campbell is never gonna beat me in November. Hey, Margarita. Campbell is never gonna beat me in November. Donna's gonna make the country better than you can remember. Campbell is never gonna beat me in November. Hey, Margarita. When I dance, I do the Macarena. Shake it on my trailer campaign now. They all love me, cause I'm Dante, and every good American wants me. Votes for me, Joe just beat on himself the third time this week. Votes for me, Joe just beat on himself the third time this week. Campbell is never gonna beat me in November. Donna's gonna make the country better than you can remember. Campbell is never gonna beat me in November. Hey, Margarita. Campbell is never gonna beat me in November. Donna's gonna make the country better than you can remember. Campbell is never gonna beat me in November. Hey, Margarita. Margarita, 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 hey. Margarita, 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 hey.
We have very large differences on health care.
During the fight over the government shutdown, something beautiful happened. A special moment where Trump even used his X account to show the world this.
Look, guys, there's no way to sugarcoat it. Nobody likes Democrats anymore. We have no voters left because of all of our woke trans bull. Not even black people want to vote for us anymore. Even Latinos hate us. So we need new voters. And if we give all these illegal aliens free health care, we might be able to get them on our side so they can vote for us. They can't even speak English, so they won't realize we're just a bunch of woke pieces of shit, you know, at least for a while until they learn English and they realize they hate us too.
The Democrats, like angry librarians, responded exactly how you'd think they would.
Yesterday, the president posted an offensive deepfake AI video of Leader Jeffries and me, with sombreros, fake music, impersonating my voice through AI. It wasn't me.
Wait. That wasn't you? Really, Chuck? That looks and sounds a lot like you.
This is Trump AI attack. It's a video. I'm not going to play the whole video because we don't find it meets our standards or is newsworthy.
There's some breaking news here. MSNBC has standards. It's kind of incredible if you take 3 seconds to think about the insane shit they've broadcast.
It's basically this ridiculous, hateful, kind of bigoted, doctored image. In the video, he has the politicians saying things they don't really say. So we're the news. We're not going to tell you what it is because it's false. We have that standard.
It's hard to believe they can actually be that stupid, but it's possible. You have to assume this is extreme gaslighting at work here. The most concerning part of this is people watch this slop and believe it.
It's a disgusting video, and we're going to continue to make clear bigotry will get you nowhere. We are fighting to protect the health care of the American people in the face of an unprecedented Republican assault.
What does that shameful man do? After a meeting where you're supposed to be working out details, where you're supposed to be negotiating a deal, you post something that draws a sombrero and a mustache?
Oh no, not a sombrero. No good troll could just let that one slip away. I don't know. For all the hate AI gets, I think we've found the perfect way to use it.
I am not even Mexican. I don't know why President Trump keeps saying that shit. He needs to say it to my face, Holmes. And while we're at it, I'm getting really tired of all that dollar store Obama. It's getting old, homie. My name is not Dollar Store Obama. Okay, pendejo? ¡Órale! ¡Arriba! ¡Arriba!
Have you heard them ever talk so much about a sombrero?
Yeah, it's been a subject and really overused subject all day up here today. So, yeah, who knew, right? That you could get this kind of content and get this kind of vibe going about it. Yeah.
And after all that was over, Trump posted photos of the Trump 2028 hats he gave to Hakeem Jeffries and Chuck Schumer. Reportedly, he also showed them his wall of president photos where Joe Biden's was replaced with an auto pen machine.
We do a little trolling. It's called We Do a Little Trolling.
Ready or not, we'll be right back. That Kevin. Now, back to That Kevin Show with Kevin McCullough.
Welcome back to Times Square. It's That Kevin Show, thatkevinshow.com for everything related, including the podcast and the videos and the highlights and the excerpts and the columns and everything else. Thatkevinshow.com, never behind a paywall, always available for you. My next guest was my very first guest on That Kevin Show when we launched it, however many years ago it's been now, and she returns often to visit with us, and I'm so happy. The one thing that I am a little bit disappointed in, Elizabeth Pipko, is that when you go on News Nation or Fox or all these things, there's a full-size selfie on your Instagram saying, I'm going to be on News Nation tonight at 9. So I'm hopeful that
You're getting it. You will get
that Kevin Show selfie will appear in the Hall of Fame of the Elizabeth Pipko Instagram stories. Kidding, of course, friend. Appreciate you. And your dad was before the Senate this week. Are you allowed to talk about this? Can you tell us a little bit?
Yeah, I mean, my dad was nominated by President Trump to be ambassador to Estonia. He was before the Senate a few weeks ago, actually during the summer, but I think this week was like the main vote for actually getting some of those ambassadors through. They're having a little bit of a struggle with the government being shut down, obviously, but it does seem like Republicans and Democrats are still working on a few things. So I think that's good. I think people should be happy to know that they're still somehow working on a few things, which is good.
I like the fact that the vice president took the time to go down to Caroline Leavitt's podium and give the what for to the press. I mean, it's you've got to. The thing that I think the Trump administration has realized and kind of done a better job from the start, at least in this term, is that they are not going to let the narrative be suspect to whichever way the wind blows. Like, they are not only going to be there ready to respond to things that are untrue that are said about them, but they're going to set the narrative in many instances. And I think that you're seeing that, Elizabeth, in the approval ratings, in people's satisfaction. I'm hearing that Republicans for the 2025 elections, which even aren't, I mean, they're not very many. There's like a gubernatorial race in Virginia, New Jersey, and the mayor's race in New York, and a handful of other things. But like, we're up 1 million, Republicans are up 1 million plus registrations across the country in an off year. And that has to be attributed to not only the efficiency of the administration, but how well they're executing the campaign that they waged.
Yeah, I mean, I have to actually give a little bit of credit to the left. I actually think a lot of it is because the left has been so bad that people learned their lesson as well. Yes, I think the right, we figured it out, right? We went into the first administration very naive, thinking that the campaign was over and that the viciousness would stop, the vitriol would stop, and that would be like fair game. And it obviously was not. I don't think it's been fair game for anyone on the right in the media since Donald Trump announced back in 2015. But at the same time, the left has gotten caught lying so many times. They've gotten caught manipulating things, really just working overtime to make Donald Trump look bad, and not just because they hate Donald Trump, but because they want to sow this division in the country because it makes them more money and gets them more clicks. And I think people have finally caught on. They don't want to hate their neighbor because they voted differently than them or because they like Donald Trump or see him differently. And I think it's a combination of us realizing that people were actually working against us, even though we just wanted to make the country better, and the left really just disappointing everyone, minus like a tiny faction of the far left radicals left in America who actually still listen to what they have to say.
Well, I actually wrote about that this last Wednesday, I think it was, for Town Hall, because I said, on the shutdown issue, for example, it's so odd because you have them literally willing to go to the level of shutting down the government because they're not getting more stipends to pay for socialized medicine to give to people that don't even have the right to be here to begin with. And then they lie and say that's not what it's about, that they're not trying to get, extensions on tax credits for free illegals for health insurance. And yet that's exactly what the text of their, desired legislation reads as. So it's like they don't even know. They're not even very good at lying. That's my point. Like, it's so bad. And
it is.
In addition to that, Jesse Waters and Jessica Tarloff this last week, Jesse starts the nightly program on Fox, and he says something like, well, it's just showing what they're going to have to play defense on this whole election cycle, because they're going to be out there defending crime and illegal immigration and all the stuff that takes Americans' rights away. And he cuts to Jessica Tarloff, and the first thing she says, well, crime's not terrible. It beats having your city militarized. And I'm like, he just said you were going to say that.
Yeah. They almost don't see it because it's like a character that they've all put on for the last few years. They don't realize what they're doing, but they're basically spitting in the faces of the American people. They believe that they are stupid, that they will not fact check them, that they will blindly listen to whatever they have to say. And clearly it hasn't worked. And on the Democrats with this whole shutdown, yes, obviously they're lying, but politicians have lied for years and years and years. What they're doing, again, is spitting in the American people's faces, because we just had an election. All these policies, they were on the ballot. All these individuals were on the ballot. They lost. There's a reason Republicans hold the presidency and the House and the Senate. So to turn around and say, hey, we're going to hold the government hostage if you don't give us this, when the American people just voted against all of these things, is really, really disrespectful. Of course they're lying. Of course they're politicians. They always have been. They're going to continue down that path, even though it hasn't worked. But the American people just told them they're not interested in this. So to shut down the government out of pure selfishness, knowing the American people don't support them, that is peak Democrats 2025.
And even having
truly.
Democratic senators calling them out, saying it's not the Republicans shutting it down, it's you guys.
Yeah.
It's because it's that one extreme wing of their party. Let me move on, because I've got a number of things I want to touch base with you on. There's no bigger Israel supporter in talk radio and television than yours truly. I've been multiple times. I know Ambassador Huckabee super well. He's like a family member. My first visit to Israel ever was hosted by Bibi Netanyahu. So I feel like I've got a lot invested in the future of this country that I deeply love. As an evangelical Christian, I see the Israeli people as my brothers and sisters. I don't see them as something other. This last week, Bibi came to the White House. The president laid out this 20-point plan. It's pretty straightforward, Elizabeth. I read through it. There's not anything on there that, even uneducated goat herders couldn't understand. And yet, as of this conversation at this moment in time, Hamas has not signed off on it. Do you think President Trump really does allow Bibi to go in there and basically flatten the rest of Gaza if they do not agree at this point in time?
I do. I've talked about it with a lot of people, a lot of networks on the left that have argued with me both about the Israel-Gaza, the fight going on in the Middle East, and of course the conflict between Russia and Ukraine. And the way that I explain President Trump to people is that he hates war. He hates when innocent people have to die. He's very famously said that he wants the blood and the death to stop when asked by, I believe, Caitlin Collins of CNN, who he wants to win the war. And she thought it was some kind of gotcha moment, that he didn't say he wants Ukraine to win. But the fact is, it was the most obvious answer, and any other president would have been celebrated for that answer, because again, we want innocent people to stop dying. But just like he's doing with Russia and Ukraine, he's trying the same thing in the Middle East. He was put in a very bad situation, brought into the Oval Office knowing that these wars were taking place. I personally believe neither of them would be taking place if Donald Trump won
Without question.
in that election, right?
Yep.
If Donald Trump was in that Oval Office, if Donald Trump won that election and sat in that Oval Office for those 4 years, none of this would have happened, because Hamas knew, Iran knew to fear America, Russia obviously the same, none of it would have happened. So he knew that he had to basically inherit these wars and fix them. And the first thing Donald Trump wants to do is try to fix them diplomatically. He has no interest in, appeasing to Europe when it comes to Russia, Ukraine, or going in and trying to, kill innocent people, when he knows how many innocents have died both on the Israeli and Palestinian side in the Middle East. So for him, it's let's try to diplomatically end this.
Welcome back to Times Square. It's That Kevin Show, thatkevinshow.com for everything that you're looking for. New Jersey is the most taxed state in America. Jack Ciattarelli says it doesn't have to be that way, and today he is here to discuss his plan for affordability, protecting parents, and something called NYC's reverse congestion pricing. Jack Ciattarelli, welcome back to Kevin McCullough. It's good to see you.
Hey, Kevin, great to see you too. Thanks for having me back.
I appreciate the fact that you are so busy that you are actually calling in from the car, and we're grateful that we can get a good connection here. Let me run straight to the pain point that most of the people in your election are going to be voting on, and that is the amount of taxation that they face. Jack, on day number one, what is your answer to the taxation in New Jersey?
I get to introduce the first budget under my administration within the first 6 weeks. It'll take effect on July 1st of my first year in office, and that will reflect a downsized state government. I'm going to very responsibly and surgically reduce the size and cost of our state government to afford a tax cut for individuals and businesses. Our individuals and our businesses are the highest tax in the country. We've got to grow our economy. We've got to put more money in people's pockets so we don't have an affordability crisis in New Jersey. So that's what happens on day one. We go to work on a state budget that reduces taxes across the board.
Now, you were just in what may end up being the only gubernatorial debate for your race this last weekend. And by every media outlet's coverage that I read, you exceeded expectations. And I wasn't able to catch all of it, but for the amount that I thought so as well. But one of the things that you made mention is that your opponent has not pledged to keep taxes where they are or to not raise taxes. And yet she's trying to, through on-air ads, claim that you're the tax hiker. What universe is this person in?
My opponent is about power, not people, Kevin, and that's why she's lying throughout the campaign on a number of issues, one of which is taxes. And I just found it extraordinary. When I was asked about her ads, I said it's a blatant lie. Nobody's taxes are going up under Governor Ciattarelli. And then they asked her the same question. She said, I'll be fiscally responsible, but I'm not committing to anything. So let me see if I get this. You're lying about my tax policies, and then you turn around and say that you won't reject the notion of you increasing taxes. It's the height of hypocrisy.
Yeah, I think that's the way a lot of people are going to interpret it. You have floated this idea of, and I think you're the first person and the only person I've heard put teeth to it, reverse congestion pricing. We've heard about New York City's congestion pricing for about 10 years. They have finally implemented it, and I think it's hurting the city in pretty remarkable ways. But you are actually floating something called reverse congestion pricing. Why are you floating it, and what are you hoping to achieve from it?
I wish I wouldn't have to do that, but if New Yorkers are going to go ahead with that congestion pricing plan, which I think is an egregious money grab, New Jerseyans should not be paying to fix the New York subway system. And if they go ahead with it, any New York plate that comes through the tunnels or over the bridge in the morning into New Jersey, I'm going to hit them with a congestion pricing fee, and we'll dedicate it toward New Jersey Transit. We're not going to be pushed around on this, Kevin. New York's got more than enough to fix their subway system. Putting it on the backs of New Jerseyans just isn't fair in my mind.
I actually think some outer borough people agree with you as well, but sadly they wouldn't be impacted by what you would decide to do to protect your voters. Let's talk about New Jersey Transit. You just mentioned it. They keep bleeding riders. What's your 12-month triage? How do you fix them in short order?
First and foremost, we're putting all of our mass transit systems under one roof. Right now, we've got, the Atlantic City Expressway under an authority. We got the Parkway Turnpike under an authority. New Jersey Transit's under an authority. We're putting it all under the Garden State Transportation Authority, just like other states do. And we'll have only one management structure. Better accountability, better transparency. I'll provide the necessary subsidy from our state budget. But specific to New Jersey Transit, Kevin, we've got to reevaluate every single bus and train line to make sure that the ridership justifies the existence of that line. And where it doesn't, we'll have more resources to dedicate to those routes that serve the greatest number of commuters.
That seems to make a lot of common sense, and I hope that that is something that voters are looking for. Let me shift gears. Let's talk about parents and classrooms for a second. You've drawn a very clear line on what you call parental notification and curriculum transparency. You stood with a bunch of parents just a few weekends ago demanding that parental notification and parental rights be respected by New Jersey state schools. What can you do as governor to bring back a better environment? This is kind of a toxic thing, the way the teachers unions are at odds with the parents all the time. You seem to be saying you are a parent's guy. How do you fix it?
First thing I do as a candidate is produce a Republican majority. Now, you remember how we flipped 8 seats back in 21 when that was wind in my face. We've got some wind in our back this time around. I could flip at least 13 seats.
Stick around for more of That Kevin. Next, That Kevin Show with Kevin McCullough. Here he is from New York. That Kevin McCullough.
12-month triage. How do you fix them in short order?
First and foremost, we're putting all of our mass transit systems under one roof. Right now, we've got, Atlantic City Expressway under an authority. We got the Parkway Turnpike under an authority. New Jersey Transit's under an authority. We're putting it all under the Garden State Transportation Authority, just like other states do. And we'll have only one management structure. Better accountability, better transparency. I'll provide the necessary subsidy from our state budget. But specific to New Jersey Transit, Kevin, we've got to reevaluate every single bus and train line to make sure that the ridership justifies the existence of that line. And where it doesn't, we'll have more resources to dedicate to those routes that serve the greatest number of commuters.
That seems to make a lot of common sense, and I hope that that is something that voters are looking for. Let me shift gears. Let's talk about parents and classrooms for a second. You've drawn a very clear line on what you call parental notification and curriculum transparency. You stood with a bunch of parents just a few weekends ago demanding that parental notification and parental rights be respected by New Jersey state schools. What can you do as governor to bring back a better environment? This is kind of a toxic thing, the way the teachers unions are at odds with the parents all the time. You seem to be saying you are a parent's guy. How do you fix it?
First thing I do as a candidate is produce a Republican majority. Now, you remember how we flipped 8 seats back in 21 when that was wind in my face. We've got some wind in our back this time around. I could flip at least 13 seats. And with 13 seats, we get to 41. That's a majority in our state assembly. We bring better balance and I think better debate and better policy out of the legislature when that happens. But I'm going to fight like hell for this, Kevin. My opponent has said she's continuing with the LGBTQ curriculum in our public schools, but she's gone a step further than Phil Murphy. She has said that she's not going to let parents opt out of those lessons. My goodness. I think if parents want to opt out of those lessons, they should. But I will tell you, as governor, we're not going to have an LGBTQ curriculum. I'm an inclusive guy. I'm all about a safe environment, all about a welcoming environment. But there's no need for that curriculum to be in our public schools. There's some other things being taught there that belong home at the kitchen table. I'll have a parent's Bill of Rights. I will have an attorney general and a commissioner of education who are sensitive to parental rights. And we'll have a public school curriculum that respects parental rights with an age-appropriate curriculum.
Is it safe to say that Governor Ciattarelli will see to it that boys are not in girls' bathrooms?
Absolutely. Policy 57, 56 goes out the window on day 1, too. We should not be keeping secrets from parents. So biological boys should not be playing in girls' sports. That's dangerous and not fair. And we won't have policy 57, 56. Our children are best served when school districts and parents work in partnership, not in secret.
There seems to be a certain element of your constituency that wants to see reading and math. You know, the things that schools were all built for? They seem to want to see those back on track. And there's ways to help literacy. There's ways to kind of get these core curriculum subjects back into the center of the educational process. What's your plan for this?
I replace everyone on the State Board of Education on day one and replace it with people who agree with me on what our public school curriculum should be. We're graduating illiterate kids, Kevin. 50% of the incoming freshmen in our 19 community colleges are taking remedial courses, okay, that don't even qualify for college credit. Now, it's great that the community colleges are there for them, but that's a travesty. We've got kids that are graduating high school that don't know how to sign their name because we've stopped teaching script, cursive. I mean, these are all the things that we're failing our students, but we'll get back to the basics, and that includes providing vocational training for those kids that don't want or need to go to college.
That's another common sense solution. Let's talk about school safety for a second. The nation is still reeling from the dramatic assassination of Charlie Kirk. That was on a college campus. But just a week before that, there were kids that were killed at a school in Minneapolis. School safety since Parkland has been something that people are concerned about. What is the Ciattarelli plan to keep schools safe?
Work in partnership with our state school boards association to learn what is it that we need to do from a technological standpoint and from a law enforcement presence standpoint to make sure this kind of thing just doesn't happen in New Jersey. We can't tolerate this. We shouldn't have parents worrying about whether or not their children are coming home from school each day.
Last question on this section, immigration and sanctuary city policies. What happens to this pretty wide open border, not at the U.S. southern border, but at the New Jersey state border the day you get elected?
Hey, the president has done his job. He shut down the border. He secured it. Illegal crossings are down 98%. I think it's time for governors to do their job. And so executive order number 1, no town in our state will be a sanctuary city. We will not be a sanctuary state. That only encourages illegal immigration. And the job of law enforcement harder. We're not doing that here. That ends on day 1. If you notice in the debate, another question my opponent refused to answer. I don't know what's so hard about this.
We're starting to lose contact with you. Let me just get one more question in before we're done. The race is close. You mentioned in 2021 where Trump did 11 points worse in his race in 2020. You were right there. You tied the gap. He did, 16 points better, 11 points better this go around. If all things are equal and stay the same, that puts you into a slight advantage in this election cycle. The polls are starting to show it. I think you're, 7 down in one of the latest ones. How are you feeling about the contrast and the electability and what you're dealing with here as we start the final stretch?
Kevin, we don't trust the polls so much that come out of our universities. They just don't make the necessary investment. We find that Republicans and men in particular are underrepresented. My opponent's polls show this a dead heat. We've got it as a dead heat, and outside agencies have it as a dead heat as well. And for me to be there with 6 weeks to go, I say we're in really good shape. The Quinnipiac poll that came out this week, they had me down, I think it was 7 or 8 points. Last time around, they had me down with 12 points with 2 weeks to go. And last year, they had Kamala Harris winning New Jersey by 20 plus. We trust our internal polling. We're right where we need to be. And evidence of that is that in the last 5 weeks, I've been endorsed by 3 different Democratic mayors across the state. People have had it, and I'm not just talking about Republicans.
Yeah, no, that's pretty obvious. All right, Jack Ciattarelli, you got to come back and see us again before Election Day. But friends, if you would like to give a gift to Jack to help him get across the finish line, jackfornj.com, and we'll see you down the road.
Kevin, thank you. Looking forward to it.
Always a pleasure. Kevin McCullough coming back from Times Square. Don't go away.